Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. I want to thank everyone who has sent in their story and to the people who have done the interviews. If I have not read your story yet on the channel, I will get to it soon. Please give me some time and I promise your story will be up on my channel. I also wanted to mention, please send me your story to my email address and not in the comments if you want it to be on the show. This weekend I will be heading out to David's to film part 3 of the documentary. I will be camping for about 3 to 5 days, and I plan on checking the trail cameras and putting up a few more. I really wish I had a better camera with nighttime capabilities and maybe a drone to fly over the area for footage and surveillance. Many people in the comments have been asking how to donate to the channel. I decided to create a PayPal donate link for those who wish to contribute to Sasquatch Theory. I really appreciate it, and I hope to put out better quality videos in the future if possible. The donate link will be in the description below. I believe part 3 will be better because I bought a new mic for my cameras and the audio quality should be better. I really wish I had a person to help me film, but I enjoy the solitude and freedom of being independent. I plan on making this the best documentary so far. Alright, in this episode we have a very good eye sighting encounter from a gentleman out of Tennessee. Trey lives a very down-to-earth, modern lifestyle for a Midwestern person. He works hard for his family, enjoys the outdoors and hunting. He has nothing to gain by telling his story other than the ease of taking it off his chest. Although he will never be able to forget the moment he saw a Bigfoot, he has been determined to share his story and help out other like-minded people. His goal is to simply spread the word that there are things in the forest we cannot explain with modern science. Stick around and find out what happens to this turkey hunter on this early spring morning day.
So, could you tell the story from where you were at, what was happening, where you were living, and when you started noticing the activity and everything that transpired from there?
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank
So I dairy farmed basically my whole life, and up until 2018, and we owned about 500 acres adjacent to the forest that this incident happened in. And so when we grew up, we rode four wheelers in those woods. We hunted deer in those woods. I spent most of my free time on a four wheeler with my 22 or my single 20 gauge single shot shotgun, riding around those woods and killing any kind of animal that moved, and bird, squirrel, whatever. And I had never experienced anything that was off. I had never experienced anything was weird. But, I look back and I think about it, and I also was never looking, I was young, and so, I never looked for anything off. I never looked for anything that might be different. So, I think about a lot of times that something may have been going on that I just didn't realize it at the time, but now I see. But so the morning that this happened, I walked in from my house, probably about a mile. It's right under a mile, probably, the way you have to walk in, down to what I would call the green field. And if you look in the picture there, it's basically just a natural formed field in the center. And the pit in the picture, it has been kind of manicured and logged out. But when
you.
this happened in 2013, it had not been. And so in the middle of this field, it's basically a deer hunter's paradise. I mean, it's probably 700-acre forest, depending on what direction you go, with hills and hollers all in it. Uh, some of them in that topographical map I sent you, right there beside that field, it even has one of the hills marked as 800 feet right there. Which for Tennessee, right here where I'm at, that's basically a mountain, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and so this green field is kind of down in the bottom of it in like a bowl. And so I hiked in that morning, and this would have been around early April. I figure, because I was scouting for turkey, and I had never turkey hunted um, down in what I would call the green field. I had only ever deer hunted down there. And so any anytime I had ever been down in there, if you think about the seasons, I had never been down in there when it was actually um, never been down in there hunting when it was actually, like, I guess what you would call in bloom. Does that make sense? Uh, the vegetation was filled out.
Yeah.
As far as the shrubbery and whatnot, leaves all over the tree.
Because
Um, and
you
so
normally deer hunted. Is
Right.
that right?
I had
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. I had not been down in there hunting for turkey, because turkey hunting is something that I picked up like in my early, like when I was like 19 going into 20, because I had just got burned out on deer hunting,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody who's hunted deer their whole life understand what I mean when you just kind of get that you just don't have any desire to kill a deer anymore. You know. Um And so I get into turkey hunting, and I'm like, well, there has to be turkey in there. There just has to be. And so I hike in there one morning with a tom decoy and two hens and my pack with my calls in it. I did not have my shotgun with me because this was right before season opened. And I was pretty much just kind of filling it out to see if see if I could get on a bird down in there, or there might not be anything. Plus I enjoy being in the woods. I always have. I'm hiking in, and with my equipment, and I don't notice anything that's off. It's normal. I didn't hear anything normal. The only thing that I thought was odd was after I got maybe an eighth of a mile into the woods, I hit my owl locator call, and I probably hit it two or three times, and I didn't get any response. Not a gobble, not a gobble, not a chirp. And the reason that's odd is if anybody who's listening to this is from Tennessee and live in the country, around turkey around turkey season, you know that you can walk out on your front porch at the right time of day, and you can probably get a response from a tom somewhere, whether it's across the farm or in the woods across the street or whatever. But I got no response, and so I didn't think anything of it, and I walked down into the green field. And if you look at the picture I sent you, I would be in the wood line that was closest to the direction that I walked into the field. And I was in, and anybody again who knows anything about turkey hunting, I was in full leafy suit. I had my face painted. Um, I had my face painted. I had on sunglasses that were camouflage tinted on the outside, because I learned something about turkeys really fast, and that they will spot you. And so there was no camo lacking on me, and you'll see why this is important here in just a second. And so I come in, and I get in that wood line, and I find an oak tree that's pretty good size, and I just put my back up against it, and I sit down, and I had already put my decoys. Maybe they were probably 40 yards from me out in the center of the field, and then there was another 40 yards to the far side of the field in the other wood line. And so I'm sitting there, and I get out my slate call in my pack, and I start scratching on my slate call a little bit. Just, not nothing too serious, but just seeing if I can get anything to come in. And about what I would call first shooting light, um, which to me that would be like, for any hunters out there, if you could, that's that time whenever it crosses from dark to where if you needed to put your scope on a deer, you would be able to put your scope on a deer and shoot them. So daylight was just kind of coming in, and I caught at the very far end of the field, I caught some motion in the leaves, like in the wood line. And so I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe, I thought maybe I had got, when you see motion in the woods, sometimes you don't even see what it is. You just kind of catch it, like when you're deer hunting and a doe. You didn't see the doe at all, then all of a sudden she's standing in the field in front of you. You
Mhm.
know, kind of just a sensory thing. And so I caught that down at the far end of the field, opposite wood line from me. And so didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, so maybe there are some turkeys down in here. And would not be surprised at all if I saw some deer. But got to hit my slate call some more, and I didn't see this. I didn't see this happen, but I caught movement again. But more toward me now. Not directly in line with me, but working its way down that far side, that far wood line.
Mhm.
And I started kind of watching that area, and it wasn't. And so when I tell this story now, looking back, it it really almost freaks me out when I think back on it, and I just but this is one of the main things I noticed. At this point is when I realized it was this point when I realized that something wasn't right. And I did not get that. I did not, you hear people talk about this feeling, this paralyzing fear feeling, or nervousness or whatever. Um, I got the feeling. I got a feeling of fear, but it wasn't something that was overwhelming. I don't think it was like anything that was broadcast to me or anything like that. I think it was just. It's like when you're in the woods in the dark and you hear something funny and you get that feeling in your stomach. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I kind of get just kind of freaked out a little bit. And this thing, and this is the only way I can describe it. And I don't know if it's because when I say this, I'm not saying that this Sasquatch was like a specter or anything like that. Like, I don't want y'all to think I'm nuts, but I'm just describing it this way because I can't describe it any other way. It moved like a shadow down the wood line. And what I mean by a shadow is, I mean, it moved absolutely fluidly within the greenery and within the wood line.
Mhm.
Kind of, you would think anything that large would be an absolute, could not move through the woods silently and smoothly, but this did. And so it moves down the wood line. It moves down the wood line probably. I get my eyes on it. This is the second time I see it, and I get my eyes on it, and it's moving down the wood line slowly, but consistently. And at this point in time, I am starting to get freaked out because I cannot place what it is. And you've always heard stories around this area of a bear, like this a one random black bear. And
Yeah.
they people have also told stories around here of a panther, a black panther, which and I, but that's what you start thinking, a black panther or whatever. And
Mm.
so come it comes down I'm starting to get nervous just telling the story. It comes down the wood line, moving, like I said, like a shadow, and it gets to where it is directly in line with my decoys. Now, I don't know if I don't know if me, and I don't want to brag on myself with my turkey calling, because I don't know if the Sasquatch thought my turkeys were turkeys, and it was planning on trying to get a turkey, or what it was, but it came down and it got in a line with my decoys, right?
Mhm.
I'm sitting here at this point in time. I still don't know what I'm looking at. I can't see the full size of it. I can't see, I can't see any sort of really body shape. I can't really tell anything about it other than it is a black something, and it's moving, and it has been moving down this wood line. And so this is when it gets, this is when I about passed out in the woods. And so it gets to this point when it's in line with my decoys, and it starts to move out of the what would be the greenery on the far side of the field. And so it was kind of bent over, not like in a sneaking posture, but just kind of bent over at the back. Took a step out of that wood line, and then took another step out of the wood line, and stood straight up. And I literally in this moment of telling the story, my heart is racing thinking about it. It was probably, I would say, not it's probably 7.5 foot tall, maybe. I don't really have anything to compare it to, but it was probably 7.5 foot tall. And if I'm 2 foot wide at the chest, it was probably 4 foot wide at the chest. That might be a little much. 3 foot wide at the chest, but it was big. It was too big. It was too big to have moved like it did down the wood line. And so at this point, I am absolutely frozen with fear, not because I felt threatened or anything, but because I had never in my life, like, I had heard about Bigfoot. I had heard about Sasquatch. I had, there had been people talk around this area about it my whole life, but never had any kind of experience like this. And here I am. The realization that 80 yards away from me, that just stepped out of the wood line, is a 7.5 foot tall something that's not supposed to exist.
Right.
And so at this point, and maybe, it felt like eternity, but this whole incident from when it stepped out of the woods, it steps out of the woods 2 steps probably, stands up straight. And at this point, the reason I say about the turkey decoys is because it looked like it looked at the decoys, and then at that point, it literally did not turn around and go back into the woods, but it literally took steps backwards, backed out of the field, but did it in a manner that was swifter than when it came out. When it came out of the woods, it was methodical and kind of placing steps, but when it went back, it was just swifter, backpedaling back into the woods. And so it went back into the wood line, and not directly the way it came, but kind of uphill away from me. It was, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, I could see its back, and then at that point it was gone like a flash. That's why I say it moved like a shadow, because there was no this is thick brush. This is thick areas. There's no way a 7.5 foot tall creature that I don't know how to guess its weight, but it was too big not to knock trees down and rustle through the bushes. It did not. It literally moved like a snake. Does that make sense? Does that sound nuts?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So as soon into the line, he just kind of turned into like a black blob moving through the woods, or like you said, a shadow.
Yes, and I don't know what. Of course, you don't never know. I don't know what the intentions were. I'm gonna call it a Sasquatch. I know some people call it like a thing like they don't know, but I know for 100% fact that it was a Sasquatch. So I'm gonna call it a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And so the
Okay.
Sasquatch. Go ahead. Sorry.
Can you describe the features? So he was probably around 7 to 8 feet tall. I'm gonna say he's probably around 8 feet, because the only thing you have to compare him to is people. But I bet, like, if you went out there and compared him to a tree from your viewing point, and you looked at like where you think he was and walked all the way over there, it'd be a lot taller than what you previously thought, I think.
It most definitely, it probably would be. That's exactly what I did in my mind. Of course, this is afterthought. I did not. I wasn't thinking at the moment when this happened. How tall is that? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But looking back on it, I think I look at myself. I'm 6'1", so I look at myself standing in that same spot. Like if I was looking at myself, and I know for a fact it was a foot. It was probably a foot and a half taller than I was,
Yeah.
And so, and 3 feet. What I mean, I don't know how. I said I'm 2 feet wide, but that's probably not right. You know, a normal. I weigh 180 pounds, and I'm 6'1", so I'm probably, I don't know, a foot, 16 inches wide at the chest. And so the Sasquatch was probably 3 foot wide at the chest. Burly, very burly, and was not a, this was not a long, I hear like long hair, like shaggy hair. This was not, this Sasquatch did not have long hair.
It was like an inch or like centimeter or
Yeah,
something like that.
no, it wasn't like buzzed, but you could see its body features. You
Mm-hmm.
could see different shapes and stuff. It wasn't like it had carpet hanging off of it, and so you couldn't see. You could see it had. You could see it had muscle on it. You could see its bulk. Um, not like you could see abs on it or nothing like that, but you could definitely see defined shapes. And
Yeah.
so
What
I look
color was it?
back. It was, I say black because I don't have a better way to describe it, but it was almost like a jet black is the way I
Yeah.
say it. Black doesn't do
Hmm.
it justice.
Yeah, it's like an ink black or jet black.
Ink, yeah, ink black. That's great to put it. That's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
Almost like if you brushed its hair the other direction, it would almost shine.
Yeah, it has a shine to it.
Yeah, like silky. Like I have a Catahoula leopard dog, and she's black, and
Mm.
if I give her a bath and brush her real good, her hair is ink like, it just shines. And
Yeah.
that's how this was. And the hair was probably, I can't say for sure, but it wasn't what I had expected. It was shorter hair. And I wonder now looking back if that has anything to do with the time of year it was. Every other animal or every other creature would grow a winter coat, and then near the
Mm.
spring would lose hair. I don't
Yeah,
know.
this is April time,
Yeah,
spring, early
this is
spring.
spring. Yep. And
Okay,
so
so
maybe,
his face, what it looked like?
well, I don't want to. I I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you anything that I don't know for sure. So I don't really have a great description of the face. All I could kind of see was a a human-like face,
Mm.
not uh, not not gorilla. I hear people say gorilla, like a
Hmm.
gorilla. It looked like a gorilla. This was what I like a big, heavy brow, um, bigger eyes.
Like a
Not
Neanderthal or like a
Yeah,
person or
exactly. Yeah, look like a person, Neanderthal, maybe Native American kind of look, like
like a Native American mixed like a black person, I guess.
exactly,
Mm.
something like that. Broad, big nostrils, heavy brow, um, large eyes, but eyes that suited the body, not eyes that were not eyes that were too. The eyes were hella big, but not
Could you
too
see
big
any
for
of
the size it was.
Okay. Could you see any of the white in its eyes, or were they more like jet black?
No, the eyes. I did not see any white in the eyes because I never made direct eye contact with it. It
Hmm.
never looked. It never looked at me, and so basically, I was looking out at it, and it was looking. It was looking down and to the right, which is where I truly believe that it was coming out there to scoop up one of my decoys.
Okay. Okay. So
You
let me
know,
put myself back in your shoes. You set up these decoys, and you're on the side that's closer to your house, and
correct.
you're calling. You're doing the owl locator call
That
on
was on the
that side of
walk
the
in.
field. Okay, on the walk in. Okay, so by this point you've called, you got the decoy set up, and you sat back on that oak tree,
Correct.
and you could see him moving down. Where did he move down from? On the opposite side of the field, like
Yeah, I
the
started. I had started hitting my slate call a few times, which is just a turkey call, with a
Mhm.
stick and a slate. And I was hitting my my slate call, and this was like at first shooting light, which is about the time that turkeys would come down out of roost. So it's when you would start calling. And
Yeah.
so
So the hens
and
are starting to fly down right now.
right. So that's the time of day it is when it's just starting to break daylight and things are just starting to come alive in the woods.
Mhm.
Um, and and so I catch movement all the way at the far end. And if you look at the picture, I'm sitting on I'm sitting on the side closest to my house, all the way to the right on the line of the woods. And so if you look at the other side away from where I would be sitting at the other end of the field, that's where the Sasquatch was. And it was working its way down the wood line. And so in my eyes, let's say for instance let's just look at it from if he did want a turkey and thought my decoys was a turkey. Well, you couldn't this the Sasquatch couldn't just walk out into the field. I don't think at this point in time. Now I don't know if when he stepped out he sensed that I was there, or when he stepped out he immediately knew the turkeys were not real, and that sketched him out. I don't know what caused him to go back, but he worked his
Mhm.
way just like I would. I mean, if I would have been turkey hunting, I would have eased down that wood line and tried to turn right there and get a shot on the turkeys. That's exactly what I would have done.
Right. And
And so go ahead.
where he came out from, was that like the pine trees? Because I saw a bunch of pines in the map, but I'm not exactly sure what side. Or you said he came out from the opposite side, but
Yes.
is that where the pine trees are growing from, or is that just a bunch of oaks? I'm just
It it
curious.
it's not there's pine trees kind of sporadically all throughout that area. It's hard to say. Do you happen to have the picture that I
Yeah.
sent you there where I put a diamond around it?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if you look at the picture I sent you with the diamond around it, if you're holding your phone upright and the sharper point of the diamond will be pointing toward the top of your phone,
Yeah.
to the right of us would be up toward my house. And so I was sitting like basically dead center of the diamond, kind of on that point right there in that wood line.
Mhm.
And then my decoys would have been out to the left of me, probably 30 or 40 yards in the center of the field out to the left.
Okay.
And then if you look down at the very bottom, if you look closely, you can see a green pond at the
Yeah.
bottom of the diamond right there.
Yeah.
That's the direction the Sasquatch came from, coming up
Oh,
that
okay.
wood line. And so
Okay.
I didn't catch him. I didn't catch him in my sight until it got in that wood line right there. And when it's as soon as it got into the wood line, even with the edge of that field, that's when I caught movement from sitting right there at that point. So as I was saying, that's when it first came into that field, in the far wood line. That's when I caught sight of him. And so, not sight of him, but that's when I caught movement and thought, it was a turkey or it was a deer, or I didn't know what it was. Couldn't really even see a color. I just caught movement of it, and I knew something was working its way up that field. So are you looking at the picture there?
Yeah.
Okay, so where we're at now, if you zoom in a little bit and you come in from where I just described, the Sasquatch came in. So he comes right into the left hand. He would have went to the left hand wood line, and it worked its way out until you get, maybe it almost looks like there's, if you follow that left wood line up about almost halfway, it looks like there's a shadow or something, like a black dot. You see that in the field right there?
Yeah.
That was probably I watched him move from there to about halfway to that point, not knowing what it was. But then from that point to where that black dot is, that's when I described it as moving like a shadow, because it literally moved through the trees like a shadow, just smooth. I mean, no trees moving, no brush getting bristled. I did not hear anything, and it was it was silent other than some birds chirping and whatnot, in the woods as morning starts to come. And so it gets to that point about where that black dot is, and that's when it took the 2 steps out, which to him, the decoys would have been almost dead in front of him at that point. But to me, they would have been over to my left, if you're understanding from the picture, kind of where I was and what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the 2 steps out toward the decoys. Maybe was there for 3 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. It felt like an eternity at this point in time, because when it stood up, I cannot. Anybody who's had an experience, and you've had an experience, but anybody who's had an experience like this knows the feeling I'm talking about. It's like your whole reality, your whole
Oh yeah.
paradigm shifts in 1 second. It almost makes you want to kind of clench up one eye, like your brain can't quite understand, what's going on.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
and and so it took
How
the 2
far
steps.
away? How far
Go ahead.
away is he?
Um,
Is he like 30,
maybe
40 yards or farther?
because of the angle where I was looking down at him out, I would say 60 yards, something like that, 60, 70 yards. So he was probably 35 yards from my decoy, and then I was 35 yards on the other side of the decoy. But I
Okay.
was maybe 15 feet into the wood line on a bank, kind of looking down on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I was absolutely all out camoed. Like I don't think it had anything to do with me being there that cost. I'm gonna say he spooked. Like you would say about a deer if it ran away. Like I can't explain why he left the area in a hurry, unless the only thing I can make.
Oh, he saw that they were fake once he got real
Yeah, and
close.
and that's what I'm thinking, because the decoys that I had were, the tom was actually a taxidermy tom. It was literally a taxidermy tom with spikes on its feet. So it was actually a turkey.
Mm-hmm.
It was just taxidermied with a full fan out, and then the two hens were like those. They were advertised a while back as like the 3D. They were like blow up essentially. They it was a high quality HD picture, and they inflated, and they went on like a little stake. And then they had a fan. They had like a little tail that would attach to their butt that was real feathers and come down. So it wasn't like, if anybody out there's listening, it wasn't like I had, like a 2D decoy out in the field, or like a $5 Walmart plastic one. Like I had some high quality stuff out there, and I definitely think that the Sasquatch thought that there were turkey out there, and
Okay.
and I don't know if it was, you know, I don't know if it was because I was, I like to think in my head it was because of my killer calling, but I just don't think so. I think I wasn't wearing out the calls. I just hit it a few times, so I think this Sasquatch probably heard it, a couple minutes before, and then started working his way there. And I think it was probably in between the time that I hadn't hit my calls, that he kind
Right.
of worked into the area. Because I
Yeah.
feel like anything like a Sasquatch, I don't feel like I could fool it with my slate call, is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
You know. Um,
Okay. So could you tell us what happened after he stood up and walked away and just?
Yep, and so the far side, he, like I said, he took 2 steps, and these are pretty good. And I also want to make a point to tell you it stood up, and so not knees crouched, but as it came out of the field, he was I just stood up out of my chair to reenact the movement, but he's been at the back, and then so you take 2 steps out of the field, and it uprighted. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so stood up, and I would have been looking at it. Would If I was him, I would have been 60, 70 yards to his diagonally to the left. Decoys would have been dead in front of him. And he stands up. I see him. I'm like, oh my gosh. Maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds passes. And then it did not turn around and go back into the woods and show me its back. it took two swifter steps backwards into the woods, and essentially disappeared. And so when it took the two swift steps backwards, I did not see it turn around, but I assumed it turned around, because if it turned around, it went uphill to the left. But within 2 seconds, it was gone. It was just too thick. I'm not saying like it teleported. I'm just saying that it got out of the area so swiftly and so smoothly that there was no brush shaking, there was no anything. It was gone, like it just disappeared, into the wood line.
Yeah.
And I am at this point, I never even said what happened after. At this point, I am racking myself why I did not bring my Mossberg. Like I am terrified. I am wondering. The immediate thought was like something's wrong, or I've misseen something, or I finally lost it, and I'm afraid. And I sit there, you know, I would think you would think thinking back now, I feel like I would have ran, but I didn't, because I was confident that I was never seen. I don't feel like that I was seen, or it didn't know I was there. So I stayed there still as a church mouse, and what did not make a noise. Was remember trying to control my breathing, because my breathing had kind of got out of control. You know, what a hunter would call buck fever. If you see a big buck and
Mm-hmm.
your heart gets to racing, and your
Yeah.
breathing and you got to control your gun or your bow because you get to shaking. I was experiencing that, but from
Yeah.
nervousness.
Yeah. Or if
You
like you're
know,
watching like a car accident happen, it's just
right?
like you can't control your thoughts. All your attention is directed towards that. Doesn't matter what else is happening.
Exactly. So I sat there, um, and another key point I think like I've 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 just recently kind of started listening to the Sasquatch stuff. You know, it's not like ever since this happened I jumped on, like I've been thinking about Sasquatches and researching and hunting for them, and none of that. It was just kind of an incident that happened that scared the shit out of me. It kind of ruined me from hunting. I basically kind of started just fishing since then. Anybody that I would tell the story to thought I was lying. My family made fun of me over it. Um, any hunters around here, there's only been like two people that I ever told that believe the story. That believe, and I don't even mean in detail telling the story, but hey, I'm not kidding. I saw a Sasquatch. Well, I would have called it Bigfoot then. I saw a Bigfoot in the woods, and they are there. They are real. And people would just say, they would just laugh at me. You know, there's no such thing as Bigfoots. It's impossible. How have we never seen one? I did see one, dude. I did see one. You
Right.
know, and um, and so I sat
So,
there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh no, I was gonna say like I'm just wondering, did you like hurry up and get out of the area?
No, I mean, I left a lot sooner than I would have if not for this happening. But I probably
Mm-hmm.
sat there maybe, and it's hard to judge the time because, like I said, I was so scared, and it's hard to look back on it. It felt like a long time, but it probably got, at that time the sun is really starting to move up fast. It stays darker down in that hole
Yeah.
a little bit longer, and the sun would have been coming up kind of behind me. And so once it got kind of more bright and lit up, and things kind of really came to life, I was kind of under control enough to where it was a direct. Normally, I would follow a four wheeler trail in. I would follow a four wheeler trail in that maybe adds a quarter of a mile, maybe a half mile more coming in, because it's a dirt four wheeler trail. So I come in that way to not spook any game, because I can move along that dirt trail basically without being heard. You know, more or less as silent as a human can be in the woods. But if you try to come straight down from my house, down through the hills and hollers, there's not gonna be anything down in there by the time you get there, just because of all the disturbance.
Right.
And so instead of turning and walking the way out I would normally go, there's another trail behind us that's not a four-wheeler trail, but it's just it's just a trail that maybe I guess people used to walk down in there, or it's just a defined trail the way out of there. And so I turned directly 180 and I booted it out of there. I booted it up out of there. I didn't run, but I was swiftly up out of there. Um,
Did you hear any trees crash when you're leaving, or anything following you? Any sticks breaking?
no, you know, it, I was pretty much on the way out. I was so panicked. I don't want to tell you anything that's not true. And so I was so panicked that I don't really, I was making so much noise that I didn't really catch up on anything. I didn't pick up on anything that I didn't notice anything following me or anything breaking. And I never heard the Sasquatch at all. Not when it was moving down the timber, not when it came out, not when it backed up, not when it turned around to leave. I never heard it at all. I never heard one footfall. I never heard one leaf rattle, a tree move, or nothing.
Yeah,
Uh, you know,
they're extremely quiet. People don't believe that, but that's just how it is.
like a shadow.
Yeah.
That was the most terrifying thing about it to me. Obviously, this something that is this big could absolutely tear me apart if it wanted to. That's scary.
Mhm.
But something that is that big that can move through forest like a shadow and not be heard is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
It is absolutely, just I mean, be able to just come right up on you. I mean, I could have, if it would have been on the other side, like I think about if the Sasquatch would have been on the other side and worked its way up my wood line and not saw me, he would have walked right into me, and I don't know what I would have done then. We might not even be talking. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
When he
Go
came out
ahead.
into the field, when he came out into that field, did he ever once look at you, like make eye contact with you?
No, no, we never. He never. He never scanned the field, and what I mean by scan the field was his eyes were dead set in toward the center of where those turkey decoys were. He never looked left and looked right. When he took those steps out, his head was basically straight ahead, and I was kind of looking at him from up to the left. But no, he never turned and looked at me. But from my perspective, you know, I could kind of see his general face shape pretty good because of the angle I was looking at him. But but his eyes did not seem to have any whites from where I was sitting. I can't say that for sure. I don't want
Yeah.
to say that he did not have whites in his eyes, but it looked like from where I was that they were black.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all different, so.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't, but I don't know that for sure. But I do know that you described it well when you said you mix an African American with a Native American, and or like an Aborigine with a Native American, and you've got a heavy, heavy brow with a wide nose. And
Mhm.
Have you ever seen you know who David Politis is?
Yeah.
The missing 401 stuff.
Yeah.
Have you
I've
have you
watched
ever
it.
s- yeah, have you ever seen any of the pictures that they had that sketch artist do of the Bigfoot?
Yeah, I have.
So that I'm not going to say that like that's it, but that general bone shape was definitely all over. When I watched that maybe a week ago, and I watched back where he was showing the pictures to like a crowd of people, and it literally like made my heart skip a beat because that was actually that's the face shape. This is not, and I want to be clear to everybody out there, and I don't know this for sure, but in my world, this is not an animal. You know, it's not a super gorilla or anything like that. To me personally, I mean, what I believe, it's not a gorilla or it's not a missing link in the evolutionary time period. I believe this is some sort of humanoid creature. And that's just what I believe because of the way it moved, because of it doing what I would have done. Um, the only reason that the creature, that the Sasquatch would have came into the field and then backed back into the wood line is to keep his face forward to see if there's any threat. That you notice the turkey, you come out into the field, you notice the turkeys are not real. It immediately clicks in the brain. This is not a dumb animal. It immediately clicks in the brain that these are fake. Why would they be fake? Somebody's, hunting, or I don't know what it thought, but something was off. And so instead of turning its back to the area where the threat was, it backed up back into the woods and did its little ghost thing right on up the hill. And so the only way I can make sense of it is that it perceived whatever was going on to be a threat, and it did not want to take its eyes off of it.
Mm-hmm. Did he go up the hill or up one of the drainages? Well, I guess it's still uphill, but did he use the drainage to go up, or did he just go up into the ridge?
Let me look at the picture here, and I can kind of. It would have been it would so if you look at the picture again there,
Mm-hmm.
the one with the diamond on it,
Yeah.
basically right there. But if you move back, right there on the left-hand point, you see
Behind
that
the
dip?
black dot, though.
Yeah, behind the black dot, you see that channel that works its way up through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely moved up through there.
Yeah, that's what I
Kind of.
figured.
Yeah, he was more forward than that. But when he turned, that's kind of what he worked toward.
Yeah.
You would have turned and went uphill toward that trench. But if you look at the topographical map I sent you, where it actually shows the terrain,
Mm.
if you look at it, we are basically. You see that blue dot in the dead center?
Yeah.
That blue dot in the dead center, if you go right up there, you see where those two creeks split?
Yeah.
That's the field. So those two creeks are on both sides of the field. And so that is the field right there in that bottom. So right there to the left, that deep channel right there, that is
Mm-hmm.
where it turned and worked its way into. And that peak right there to the, toward the left-hand side of the channel right there is 800 feet. It's 800 foot tall. That's an 800-foot ravine right
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah. That's
so,
a lot like our area, or like my area.
the reason I sent you the pictures was because I really, I don't know if you can like put them up on the video. I don't care if you do. There are going to be people who know where the location is. I mean, I don't care, but I just wanted people to be able to like see. I wanted people to be able to see, what I was describing and like be able to kind of get an understanding of what I experienced.
Yeah. And I can see why a lot of big bucks would use that area, because everything just like leads to that one spot from every direction.
Yeah, all of your, literally those creeks down in there, those creeks are maybe 15 foot wide, but the key thing about them is they're deep. And so not like deep water, but the banks are probably 8 foot tall on both sides, just from washout from all that water coming down into that area.
Right. Yeah.
And so any bucks from bucks to apparently Sasquatches to whatever can move those creeks, can move those creek lines, and basically go anywhere they want to, anywhere around there by going through creeks and working their way up through ridges and not be detected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Plus five me. Well, there may have been more, but I knew of 5 men, including myself, that had permission to hunt this.
Right.
So that's a lot of ground. We basically all stayed on our own sides. Like they didn't. They were like the other men were on the other side, so they would have came in from the other side of the woods. But only one other of those guys had ever found the green field. You know,
Right.
and so go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
And so, but now the green field, like if you look at it on the map now, you can actually see where someone has sowed grass in there and they've logged it out, and then you can actually follow the path out, and it leads out into what is now like a backyard. maybe a mile out of the woods, it leads into a backyard, and somebody's kind of got like a developed trail. But that house wasn't there. That house wasn't there. None of that led in there. It's just, it's a perfect spot. And there was a lot of big bucks in there. I mean, the 3 bucks that I have, the 3 biggest bucks that I've killed, uh, all of them came from in those woods, but one of them came from down in there.
Yeah. Do you want to show those on the show?
Sure. Yeah, I can.
Okay. Yeah. Shoot me some
do you want me to-
pictures.
Yeah, I'll
Unless
send
you
some
unless you don't want to, that's fine with me.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. I'll send you some pictures of them.
Okay. I think that stuff's cool, but so do you have access to this property today?
Yes. I mean, I could walk in there. I mean, literally, like the house I grew up in, I still live on the dairy farm in what was my grandparents' house at the time. And so I am an eighth of a mile down the road from where I could throw a rock into a part of those woods that we're looking at out of my window right now.
Okay. So
You know,
do you ever find any structures or anything odd? Have you experienced anything since?
I did not. I had never. If you can hear my kids in the background, I'm sorry. I had never even thought about a structure until your channel. Um, I don't, it's so crazy, like how I came across, your channel. Like it was almost like I was looking for something that was kind of like particularly for Sasquatch, but some of the stuff was way out there for me. Like I just kind of wanted like this is what happened, this is what people experienced, and everybody's working together to try to formulate an opinion. But some of the stuff is kind of way out there. There's too much to wrap my head around.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I like to sit here and talk about what could be, or how the craziest thing I could come up with. But I also like talking about the facts and what happened,
Mhm.
and being able to see things like maps and being able to know what how it moved and understand these creatures. Because if we can understand the Sasquatch, we might be able to be able to understand how they move, and where they move and why they move the way they do. You know, um, not to
Right.
hunt them or anything, but I think it's important.
Yeah. I'm a hunter and an outdoorsman, and I see like a lot of Bigfoot researchers go out there and they don't know about like hardly any tree species or how to read maps or how animals do things. And I
Right.
mean, and they instantly jump to the paranormal, which I mean, there are a lot of strange things attributed to Sasquatch, but they instantly jump to that without looking at all the details, like how we were talking about the way the Bigfoot moved into the field and how he was using the land and how he was hunting. Like all that plays a part, and that is what happened. He was
Yeah.
hunting.
Well, why do if you look at it like this? I mean, why do I wear when I go hunting in the woods? I've always been a fan of ghillie suits and leafy suits. That's what I've always wore. I guess because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with snipers and they wore them. But
Hmm.
but I wear full ghillie suit all the way down to my shoes, face painted ghillie mask, everything. When I say ghillie, I mean leafy suit. With 3-dimensional leaves hanging off of it,
Hmm.
and I wear that to go hunting. So I have an up on the game. And so Bigfoot, it has to be able to do something better, or be sneakier, or to be faster, to be able to stay alive. A cheetah can a cheetah can hunt and stay alive because it's faster than everything else. So a Bigfoot has to be something more than all the other game in the woods to be able to be the apex predator. So what is it? Is it more intelligent? Is it faster? Obviously, it's stronger. Um, but I think it's faster. I think it's smarter. I think it's stronger. And I think personally that a human in the woods, if there is no, I don't think that a man would have any chance. If a Bigfoot wanted you, it would be over with. Does that make sense? Hello?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Sorry
Does
about
that
that.
make sense? Did you hear me?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
it seems like they can be whatever they want to be. Like a lot of people argue back and forth that, they migrate or, they stay there year round. I think it's both, on a lot
Yeah,
of things. Just
well, I
depends
mean,
what they want to do.
sure. I mean, so if you think of it from a logical standpoint, the easiest thing to do would be to migrate because you could kind of move to where vegetation stayed thick enough to conceal yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
like around here in Tennessee, it would be very tough to the middle of winter when everybody's deer hunting for nobody else to see a Sasquatch. Something's got to be going on because there
Yeah.
is no cover. You've got hardwoods, you got hardwood forests and pine thickets and stuff like that. But to conceal a creature like this, it's going to take more than that, in my opinion. You
Right.
know, so what are the options there? Move with the vegetation, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe during the winter, I think they everything that they have and do is for a reason. So I feel like this Bigfoot that I saw was jet black because it would be the same color as what you would see as a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and so if you were looking into the woods at any place, if you look out into the woods right now, you see shadows everywhere. You see blackness, black circles everywhere. And so that would be the number one way to be able to hide yourself, if you weren't looking for something, would be able to be black.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and then so maybe who knows? People say they've seen gold ones and brown ones, so maybe they change color with the seasons. You know, um, kind of a lighter color and browner during the fall to be able to blend with trees. You
Right.
know, because there's not as many shadows when there's no foliage. On all the trees and stuff. So, um, but I've never seen one deer hunting, so that makes me very skeptical.
Yeah. Well, I mean, during the winter, I feel like they just have to stay back like 200 yards instead of like the 80 yards during the summer.
Yeah, yeah, and the way that, and again, I just want to tell people that the way this thing moved, if it wanted somebody to not know it was there, it could have done that. It could have moved. I think he was driven by the urge to try to get what he thought was a turkey, but let's just say, for instance, he knew I was there and he didn't want to be seen. He could have left the area without being heard or saw, and I
Yeah.
would have never known he was there if that would have been what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, I wrote down a couple things here that I wanted to make sure I mentioned everything. Um, let's see here. Um, a couple things that I wanted to mention that I hear a lot of other people say that didn't really line up with what I experienced. I did not notice. You hear people say that it was dead. The woods were dead, like no birds, no insects. I didn't experience that. Everything seemed to be normal.
Yeah.
Um,
Same here. Same with my experiences. Like the birds were still chirping, everything was
yep.
still happening.
Yeah, it seemed completely normal to me, as far as the sounds of the forest. The only thing that threw me off with the sounds is that I still can't wrap my mind around how something this large would have moved through the woods. Because if anybody, you said the woods are a lot like where you live, and so if anybody knows like Tennessee woods, the ground is littered with leaves and sticks, even in the summertime. I mean, you're literally walking on. It sounds like you're walking on, potato
Corn.
chips.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cornflakes or something.
yeah, corn flakes or potato chips, and you know, you said something. Was it? You said this that they could hear through their feet,
Yeah.
and you
I
were
talked
talking to
about
that
it.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We talked about
and
that.
and I feel like that was a real smart thing because elephants can sense vibration through the pads of their feet.
Yeah.
And so you have something like a Sasquatch that's in tune with the wilderness, and
I
I
mean,
feel like
they
that
have to have big feet for a reason. You know what I mean? And
exactly
it
to
has to serve
disperse
a
weight.
purpose. Yeah. Like
Yeah, to disperse
nature
the
just doesn't
pressure.
create things for no reason. Everything has a
Exactly.
purpose.
Everything has a purpose. And so you put a big soft foot on one that's real sensitive and real in tune, and it can move through the woods without being heard. Because I've got little feet. I wear a size 9.5 shoe. And so I get to walking through the woods and it sounds like I'm walking on cornflakes. But
Mhm.
if my foot was a foot and a half around, are 14 inches long and 6 inches wide with hair on the bottom or with some padding, you just take a piece of foam padding and put it on your feet and walk. You're just much quieter.
Oh
And
yeah, a
so,
lot of hunters when they're spot and stalking hunting, they'll take off their shoe and just walk in their socks, until they can get closer with their bow and then take a shot.
well, you can feel. I've never been one to like, go barefoot in the woods. But
Yeah.
but if you go outside in your yard, you can understand what you're walking on a lot better when you can feel what you're walking on.
Yeah.
So I think people don't give the Sasquatches enough credit, because you have to think, how are they not seen, or how do we not find them? Or this creature, like these people can't wrap, this creature spends every waking moment in this environment. We visit it some. Even somebody like me who hunts all the time, my experience and knowledge of the woods is not even a percentile point to what this creature has. And so its ability to move and to blend, it would have spent its whole life not learning how to get on Facebook, but learning how to disappear into the woods, learning how to move silently. All these things, people don't understand that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I feel like people, that when someone asks me, well, how come nobody's ever seen one? Well, obviously, I tell them I've seen one, but when people say, well, people would see them all the time with all the development and stuff, I just don't feel like these are dumb gorillas that run around the woods. I just from what I experienced, that's just not what I experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people with the high end technology are probably not going to tell us either. So.
Well, I mean, who's to say, now I don't know this for sure, but I feel like, the number one way I feel like to be able to find a Sasquatch is to be able to cover tons of ground with like FLIR, so like infrared radar in helicopters. Like if you wanted to find a Bigfoot, you get 10 or 15 helicopters with infrared that can look down and see heat signatures. I feel like that would be the only way that anybody could ever truly walk and photograph one that didn't want to be photographed.
Yeah, and I bet it's still tough to find them doing that.
Absolutely. Because I think their hearing, again, I believe that their hearing is just like every other animal. Just like every other animal. And again, I'm going to go back to the predator and prey thing. If you're the predator, you have to have something up on the prey. And so I guarantee that a Sasquatch can hear just as well, if not much better, than a deer. And a deer can absolutely hear. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And well, just imagine, take the stealthiness. It's scary for me to think about. You take the stealthiness and the senses of a deer that's worried about being hurt. When they're on their full guard, and stick the intelligence of a human in their brain, and think about how hard they would be to kill.
Oh yeah, it'd be tough.
Impossible. Almost impossible to find. And so that's just, I think you hit the nail on the head when you say that nothing happens by mistake. I believe you can look at every one of their characteristics, and point to a reason why they would have that.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and another thing I want to mention about the sighting is I did not notice the head shape. I just want to say something about that. Um, it was not a point. Like, it did not, like, I've seen pictures where it like comes to a point. It was not a point, but most of its head was on the rear. That's why I texted you last night and asked about the elongated skulls, um, because that just seemed kind of odd to me, and just most of its head was on the back. You know what I mean? It was
Mm,
longer than it was tall, but it didn't look awkward. It fit its body really well.
yeah. And
You
you'd be
know,
surprised. You could go to that same area, and if you ever did see another Sasquatch again, you would be shocked because this one would probably look completely different than the other one you saw, and you'd be like, "What in the world?"
how many humans have you seen that had the same shaped head?
Right.
Hardly
Yeah.
any. You know what I mean? Like if
But
all of them are different,
for family members though, for like family
yeah,
groups.
I
Well, I
guess
mean, I
so.
guess like for cats, like you get the calico one, the black one, and like a gray one, and so on.
You know, I think it's and if I'm talking too much, you just tell me, and if you got to get off, I understand. But I was thinking about something interesting today when I was in the shower, and now I'm going to get off into less facts about what I saw and more into like theoretical, like what ifs, and I, people a lot of times put the UFO encounter and orb encounter into one pot. Like the Sasquatch, UFO all go into kind of one thing, and they're noticed a lot together. Correct? People do that. You know,
Yeah.
and so just think about this for a second, and I had never thought of it this way. But what if the Sasquatch? What if it's the aliens that are taking the people, and it's the Sasquatch that are on our side, and their purpose is to defend us from the actual threat? So what if the reason we see orbs and Sasquatches in the same area is not because they're related from like a Sasquatch come from the orbs, but the Sasquatch senses the threat to a human in the area, and their actually purpose is to protect us. That's why you don't have reports of somebody being torn to piece by 800-pound, 9-foot tall male Sasquatch. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I have some weird theories about the orbs and Bigfoot and UFOs. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
I've never thought of it from that aspect, but I was scared. I was scared in that when the incident happened, not because of I thought I was in immediate danger, but because I didn't have any other emotion to feel. Does that make sense? Like I didn't feel like I was going to get eaten, but I did not know how to feel. So anytime you don't know how to feel, or you're caught off guard, you immediately go to fear. Kind of fight or flight. And there was no fight in this thing, so flight
Yeah.
was what it was.
Hmm. Okay. How has this whole thing affected your life since it's happened?
And I had one more experience, and I'll answer your question first. And I mentioned that in the first email I sent you that I had some vocalizations too. And I'll tell you about that. And it's just a short story. I know I've talked your head off, and I apologize. Um,
Oh, you're fine.
but basically, the most frustrating thing about it to me is like you're finding your channel was kind of like a godsend, because I had really begun thinking about it again, about the Bigfoot stuff, because of missing 411. So I found missing 411 about 2 years ago, and so I'd really started watching the missing 411, and that stuff really interests me because I just like stuff like that. I spend a lot of times in the woods, and I can't make sense of a lot of those things. And I enjoy thinking about it. And so then, it got over into, because when this happened, I remember like looking into Bigfoot stuff and not being able to. Of course, I wasn't in any of the worlds I'm in now, but I don't ever remember really being able to find anything like I have found now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's developed a lot, and it's okay to have seen something and tell it. But throughout this time, it was almost like anybody I told, it affected my life, because I started to doubt my own reality because
Hmm.
of people telling me that I had saw something else.
Right.
You saw it was that black bear, and it stood up on its back legs. The newspaper, if you look on the BFRO, there is 3 sightings all over where I'm at. I mean, just if you put a pin on it, it would be on top of where the other sightings were in my area. And one of them, it basically says that a Bigfoot was terrorizing the woods and taking people's animals, and then everybody was saying it was a black bear. It was like a newspaper article. And then the other 2 sightings were Class A sightings, directly in this area. One of them was in New Deal.
Yeah. I
So,
never I never looked up sighting reports until I had my own personal sightings, and there was one that was 5 minutes from my house, right
Yeah.
off the Merrimack River here in Missouri.
There, and so people want to tell me that's just coincidence. That's not coincidence. I didn't look it up. I didn't know it was even a thing until you mentioned it. You know, so I started watching. I was watching the Missing 411, and then you popped up as a suggested video. It was your very first video, your very first one, where you interviewed the guy with the killing field.
Yeah.
And I listened to it and I enjoyed it so much. I immediately liked it and subscribed, and was like, this is amazing. Like, this guy is great. And it immediately made me start thinking about my experience again. And like I told you, it took a while for me to get enough courage. I had contemplated emailing you a bunch just because I was scared to be ridiculed, just like I was the whole time. Um, you know, when I would tell people about the incident, people would say that I was crazy, or I'd seen something, or asked me if I was high, or whatever, asked me if I was stoned, or
Yeah.
like,
I get that a
um,
lot.
and so, I just want everybody to know that I'm not I don't drink, I don't use drugs, I'm not a stoner, I'm a contractor, my wife's a nurse, this is just my reality. This is what I saw, and I was not intoxicated when it happened. You know, um, it's frustrating to have. I think back over the years that's passed, and it's frustrating to have something that you want to share with people more than anything. It's exciting almost, like, hey, let me tell you about this. Like, this is gonna blow your mind, dude. And you say it, and people just look at you like you've just lost them, like you've just
Yeah.
went miles over their head, and
But I
that's
mean,
frustrating.
how many people go buy a 12 pack and say the next day that they saw, an 8.5 foot gorilla? You don't even hear that. So,
No, you don't.
I mean,
So it's um, you know, it affected my life, and I'm gonna put it in one sentence now. It affected my life, as in it made me start to doubt my own reality of what I saw as time went by. Me trying to share it, especially with my people closest to me, who
mhm.
know me as a reliable person, who knows me as a man of integrity, father, coach my daughter's softball team, somebody with integrity, and you get to a point to where you're trying to tell it to somebody and your own family, and they don't believe you,
Yeah,
and they don't
I know.
believe you, and that hurts.
Yeah, it sucks to know that you saw like one of the greatest things on this planet, and you can't tell anybody, or nobody's gonna believe
Exactly.
you.
Or nobody's going to believe you, even people who know you wouldn't lie to them.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
that hurts.
Yeah. And then and then I'll mention, and you can feel free to cut whatever it is you wanted out. I'm more or less just talking to you. I'm not going to be offended. You can cut everything I said out, but the story. If you want, or whatever. I just don't want you to. I've talked your head off, and I'm a talker. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Well, we are getting pretty close to the end of it, but I was wanting to know if you do go back into that area, which I mean, you said you live right there. Now you know kind of what to look for. I mean, as far as oddities, like twisted limbs and tree saplings and different structures. I don't know if you've seen those videos yet on my channel, but
Yeah, I've watched all of them. Yeah, I've watched everything you have on there, and I didn't know about structures until I saw your videos, and so now I do know. And I sent you a picture of one in the email that I thought was odd because it was the way they were intertwined together. One of them was like like a bush tree that had been pulled up out of the ground and like woven with another one. I
mhm.
don't know what the purpose would be for that, but uh, it was not naturally made. So either somebody walked by there and put it together, or something. But I mean,
Yeah,
that's a pretty close location to where all this happened at. But
yeah.
really quickly, I told you about my vocalization. I want to get this in there because I think this is
Oh yeah.
important.
Mhm.
Um, this happened. So if you got the woods on one side, I told you our farm was on the other side of the property. If you went straight out of those woods to where my house was, to where I showed you on the map, and went straight back behind my house, those woods basically come into an open field, and it carries a ravine all the way up through there. Well, this time I was by myself, and I was no, that's not true. I was with my grandpa, I think, and we were coyote hunting. I do a lot of coyote hunting. I love predator hunting, and I had my electronic coyote call, and so we were set up. This is probably, I know, I was set up on another ridge, and coyotes are known to travel the bottom of this ridge where the creeks are out through the to avoid the open fields. And of course, we dust them off as they come through that little bottom. And I was hitting my a coyote howl, and so and this incident was after the sighting, and so I was hitting my coyote howl, and I howled once, I howled twice, and then stopped. You give them a minute to respond or to come into the air or whatnot, and so imagine if a human had the capabilities to hit the same vocal range as a coyote, but then tried to mimic the voice. That's what I got. It was a howl, but it was not a coyote howl. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I, and it was probably maybe a mile and a half off. Not faint by any means, but not real close either. Like I know I heard it. It was clear as day, and it was a howl. Kind of a deep to high howl that was almost like mimicking the coyote. I don't know if I don't know if it was a sick coyote, but it was the reason I think it was something to do with a Sasquatch or something odd,
Mm.
or hell, who knows? It might have even been one of those other things you talked about. What was it? What do they call that? A dog guy, a dog man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was too
There's a lot of
heavy.
stories from Tennessee of dogmen. I've never seen one. I mean, I can't claim they are real, but a lot of people do. So
I mean,
I
I
bet I
can't.
would.
I can't either.
Yeah.
But
But
it had too much vocal capability to have been a coyote, and
mhm.
so it called. It returned my call. It returned the call. I hit mine twice. It did it once. Me and my grandpa looked at each other and were like, "What in the hell was that?" It did it again immediately after the first one. It made the noise again, and then we sat there in silence for a little while, and then a third time it ripped out without me hitting the call. And then at that point, all from about the same location. But at that point, we were kind of sketched out, and it was kind of a scary noise, and we went away. I quit hitting the howls, and I started doing like a distressed rabbit, and we stayed like another hour and never saw anything and went home. But as soon as I heard it, because of the sighting, I immediately thought Sasquatch. I immediately thought it has to have something to do with them, or this Sasquatch. He did see me in the field. He knows I'm up here coyote hunting, and he's trying to mess with me.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
they
know.
do mimic other animals, so you never
Uh,
know.
but this wasn't, and I don't want people to like think weirdly of this. It wasn't dead on. It was not a coyote, for sure, but it was trying to be a coyote. It sounded like it was trying to mimic the same tone or the same vocal noise from a different tone. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it was, and I do believe in my heart, I believe that it, if not for the sighting, I would have pushed it to the back of my mind as a dog or a big coyote or whatever. But from my sighting, I know that that's not it. It had something to do with it.
Right. Yeah.
So, that's my other experience. And besides that, I'm 28. I've spent the majority of my free time in my life in the woods, and I've never had or seen anything else besides those two experiences that seem out of whack for me. Pretty much been normal. And I have not seen anything since.
Okay.
But I haven't also haven't I've stayed out of the woods as much as possible. Like I've hunted since, but I've never been back down in there hunting out of fear. And I've also the reason I started predator hunting is because I could do that without being in the woods, from the safety of I don't want to be I don't want to seem like but it scared me a lot. Like the incident scared me a lot because I
Mhm.
knew that at that moment, I knew that in that patch of woods, I was no longer the apex predator.
Yeah.
And
Um,
that was hard for me to swallow.
I guess I've never been to Tennessee, but is that in the Smoky Mountains or close or
We
is
are
this
uh we are what would be like the very beginning of the Smoky Mountains. We can be in the Smoky Mountains in 3 hours.
okay?
So if we hit what would be Interstate 40 that would take us straight to the east, we are like the very bottom of what these hills and stuff are the very start. As you move more east, you get into the Smoky Mountains, and there's a lot of sightings up there, like in Knoxville, Tennessee, and up toward the Smokies.
Yeah, there's a ton of sightings in Tennessee. I
Along
actually,
with mysterious appearances. Sorry to interrupt.
I was gonna say I had a lady call not too long ago, a couple months ago, and she had a sighting. I never got back with her, but I know she'll be excited to hear this.
Well, I just want everybody, I just want to say one last thing, and I'll let you go. That I want anybody that's out there to don't let people tell you that if you saw it, you saw it. And don't let people tell you that you're crazy, or don't let people tell you that you didn't see that. Because if you saw it and you know in your heart of hearts you saw it, then there's no shame to come out to people like Sasquatch Theory here and be honest and be open and tell it, because you're not going to get judged by people like us. Because I know I saw it, and if you know you saw it, I believe you saw it. And so
Yeah,
that's just kind of where I'm coming from.
yeah, yeah. Well said. Um, if you had one message to hunters and fishermen that maybe don't believe in this phenomenon, what would you say to them if they're going into the deep woods every day?
Well, I think I don't know that everybody. I can't say that everybody who hunts enough will get an opportunity to see a Sasquatch, because I think mine was just a roll of the dice. Because 20 years of my life hunting, I never saw one. But the message I would give is just never make the mistake of going into the woods unarmed, because I don't know that a Sasquatch would ever be aggressive toward a person. I've heard stories of them being aggressive toward people, but um, in the deep woods, I just want people to understand, and even hunters who are, I'm the man, you are not the apex predator in those woods. And just understand that and swallow. I know it's hard to swallow, but swallow that down, and make sure you carry a sidearm, or make sure you carry, some sort of protection into the woods. Uh, I just, if the creature that I saw, if the Sasquatch that I saw, I'm not gonna call it the Sasquatch I saw, if it was in the woods with me, even armed, and it wanted me, it could have had me, but I would have felt better with having a weapon. And so be cognizant, pay attention to your surroundings, trust what you see. If you see a movement, if you think you see movement, if your hair stands up on end and you feel like you're being watched, you probably are. And so get the hell out of there or get to a safe spot. That's what I would tell them.
Yeah, yeah. Well said.
And if any, if there are any questions come up for me, or you need to get back in touch with me for any other reason, uh, you have my phone number, and you have my Skype info now, so you can, if you ever need anything from me at all, you reach out to me. And Dave Pilatus from Missing 411 will be doing a Bigfoot conference. I think the 23rd and 24th of this month in Gatlinburg. So in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, he's doing a 2-day Bigfoot conference up there. And so that's exciting. I don't think I'm going to be able to go because of work, but just letting people know, check online about that. And that would be a really awesome thing to get to if you believe in this topic and are passionate about it.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even know about that. That's really neat that he's doing that and keeping people informed. And touring around the U.S. to tell people.
Yeah, he does his conferences, obviously the missing 401 stuff, but I didn't know he was involved in the Bigfoot world like he is. But like, he's wrote books on it and stuff. And so I just think a lot of his work because of the way it's presented. And I would give anything to be able to go up there, but because of the way contracting works, it's just times where you can't. There's times where you can go and you can't, and this just happens to be one of the times I can't. So,
right. Would you ever show me that spot if I was in Tennessee, if I ever went down there, or do you not have access to the grain field anymore?
Absolutely. I mean, we couldn't go hunting. We couldn't go deer hunting down there, but I could holler at the guy. I know the people who own it. I could holler at them, and we could walk down in there. I could tell them we were going mushroom hunting, or we wanted to go, or whatever. But anytime you're in Tennessee, you come down here and we can walk every foot of woods in that place if you want to walk it. We can look for structures. We can do whatever.
Yeah, and
yes, sir.
You ever come across somebody that has a sighting and wants to tell the report or maybe make a documentary, let me know. I'm always up for new things. So,
well, I here recently, because of like the BFRO reports and because of like, I give your channel a lot of credit because it was just something about you and the way you were talking to the people. Like I immediately felt just trust by the way you were talking to the people. Like no matter what came out of their mouth, I could tell that you were open to understanding it and open to at least hearing it and thinking about it, And so I really appreciated that about you. And so that's why, that's why we're on the phone right now, because I knew that I wasn't going to be, criticized for telling my story. So I really appreciate that. And I know that I know your subscriber counts went through the roof here lately. And so I just want you to know you're doing a great job. And I really enjoy your content, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you telling us all your story and how everything went down.
Well, I'll be excited if you decide to put it up on the channel. I'll be excited to listen to myself tell it. And I hope I didn't ramble on too much, but.
Oh no, you did a great job. And yeah, it'll be up on the channel for sure.
Okay, well, if there's anything you need from me, you just reach out. And besides that, are we good? You got anything else?
No, I think that that wraps it up. This is my first story from Tennessee, so I'm excited.
All right, well, a big shout out to Sasquatch Theory for listening to my story, and it's very nice to meet you. And I'll catch you next time. All right.
All right. I appreciate that. Yep. See you later.
My theory on this encounter is the Sasquatch had no idea Trey was in the area and really fell for the turkey decoys. I believe when the Bigfoot stepped into the field, it realized the turkeys were actually decoys and knew immediately he was caught. He took a few steps back and melted into the forest like we have heard many times before. I believe after this, the Sasquatch would have went into full predatory mode and would have most likely got downwind of Trey. I assume he was watched the whole way out, and I am glad he made it out okay. What is everyone's thoughts on this encounter, and do you guys think there was more than one Sasquatch? This story really reminded me of Carrie Arnold's encounter from Bigfoot Odyssey. To me, it appears the turkeys are on the menu for the Bigfoot. If you are a hunter and believe this is all a hoax, please just keep an open mind and believe you will never know what you will see in the bush. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, and take care, everyone.